let's pick some NFL awards because they're getting handed out. Here we go. The candidates for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Jameer Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Puka Nacua, Bijan Robinson, and C.J. Stroud. D. Wood, who you got?
Come on, man. I'm going with C.J. Stroud. This man had the best rookie season of any quarterback in NFL history. I mean, to go out here and put together the type of season that C.J. Stroud had, there is no question of mine. And I love Puka. Puka is like, that's my dog right there. But C.J. Stroud, he's going to come home with that award.
The only person in our group who didn't pick the quarterback is our quarterback. How do you explain that?
Well, listen, and it's hard to argue against C.J. Stroud. I think that could easily be the answer. I just look at what Puka did. I think there was a large stretch, maybe the entire year, where he was the best receiver in all of football. And I think that what he accomplished in terms of the attention that was on him, and he was still producing in an offense that really needed him to produce, like that to me was a difference maker.
Yeah, I'm not going to fight against him. I think Stroud could have been in the MVP conversation. All right, candidates for Defensive Player of the Year: Deron Bland, Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, T.J. Watt. Tim, who you got?
I'm going Micah Parsons because not only do I think he's the best defensive player, or was the best defensive player, but he's kind of the most versatile as well. The way that he gets used, the problem that he creates, I think he'd be the hardest to game plan for because of how they move him around. And not that other guys don't get moved a little bit, but he gets moved so much in terms of where they play him.
Put the picks up there on the screen because you were the only one who went with Micah. You guys both going T.J. Watt.
Yeah, I'm going T.J. Watt. Led the league in sacks, but also we know what it looks like for the Pittsburgh Steelers when he's not on the football field. Yep. But then when he's on the football field, we've seen that offense get stagnant and not live up to their end of the bargain. And the Pittsburgh Steelers won games because of that defense led by T.J. Watt.
They were literally, Pittsburgh was a top 5 defense, like with him on the field. Without him, they're like 31st. Like, that's all I need to know about your impact on the defense.
I went with Myles Garrett because he made Joe Flacco a hero. I mean, the Browns, could you have worse it would be like the
former Jets quarterback
made
Joe
the
Flacco
playoffs this year. Yeah. I mean, it's just ridiculous. The number of quarterbacks they went through, and that defense carried them, and he is the immovable object, that's for sure. Okay, comeback player of the year. And Harry, the only one of us not going with Damar Hamlin is Harry. You're going with Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I gave Baker Mayfield a lot of grief in his career up until this point, but what he was able to do with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, resurrecting his career, leading them to a division title, winning the first playoff game versus the Philadelphia Eagles, and where they dismantled them as well. And then we had all kind of questions about the Eagles to end the year. I just thought Baker Mayfield did a great job orchestrating things at the quarterback position for the Tampa Bay Bucs.
Here's how I look at this one, guys. And I've made this point a few times on the radio. What Damar Hamlin is coming back from is so unprecedented, they should rename the award in his honor. It should become the Damar Hamlin Comeback Player of the Year for now and until eternity, and then you could give it to somebody else. But what he came back, the man almost died on the playing field and came back and played an NFL game.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, like, for me, it's just hard to top anything like that. We all remember that scary scene in Cincinnati on Monday Night Football with Damar Hamlin, and like, it's just an easy choice for me.
I think it's easy to say, like, oh, hey, he came back, but, like, you know how easy it would have been to walk away?
Yeah.
Like, and just say, hey, like, it's not worth the risk of that. Like, I think the courage that it takes to come back is I mean, remarkable.
That's the point. You can't compare anything to what he did. I like Harry's point. I mean, Baker Mayfield, in the traditional sense of this award, I think makes a lot of sense, which is why I genuinely do believe they should name the award in Damar Hamlin's honor. That said, Saquon Barkley actually finished third in Comeback Player of the Year in 2022. Now everyone's trying to figure out where he's going to go in 2024. Here's our Jordan Renan on Saquon's future in New York.
I'm starting to get the feeling now that they don't use the tag. The Giants want to keep him, but they don't want to pay him. The magic number is going to be $24, $25 million guaranteed. They weren't willing to get there last year. Saquon wasn't willing to budge. Saquon, you're going to be 27 years old. That's a number where they'd say, hey, running back, this is where they kind of fall off the cliff. 27 years old, right around there. To me, it seems like it's headed towards him hitting free agency.
Headed towards free agency. What do you think of that, Harry?
Yeah, I love it. For Saquon Barkley, I understand you want to be close to home, but for a guy in which we all believe he deserves the contract that he deserves for what he meant to the New York Giants and his football team, sometimes it's okay to just walk away. right? I think he should end up in Houston with the Texans with C.J. Stroud. We see Christian McCaffrey and what he means to the San Francisco 49ers. It's the same offense. You just think about how dynamic C.J. Stroud and company could be if they had a guy like Saquon Barkley that makes that offense even more dynamic than it was in his first year as a quarterback, and also DeMeco Ryans' first year as a head coach and Bobby Slowick's first year as an offensive coordinator.
You know, it's fascinating because we sit here and we say, which team could use Saquon Barkley? The answer is every team could use Saquon Barkley, and yet no one will pay him the amount of money. The running back position has just found itself in this place.
Tagging him again is still a possibility.
Yeah.
So, like, the reality is, like, it's not so clear, hey, he's going to enter into free agency. Tagging him again, I mean, is probably what is going to eventually happen. I just think this. The number of teams that have regretted resetting the running back market with their running back is much greater than the number of teams that are like, yeah, we're glad that we paid this guy all of that money. And so because of that, doesn't mean they're not valued or they wouldn't help nearly every team in the National Football League. It's, do you want that contract 3 years from now? You most likely don't.
Does it matter in the locker room? Like, we've heard some giant players, Kayvon Thibodeau and others, suggesting, hey, what they're doing with Saquon here isn't right. Does that actually make a difference to the Giants? Will it have any impact?
I think guys in the locker room talk about it. Like guys in the locker room, like, you know who the guys you really respect as players. And I'm sure in that New York, Giants locker room, they have a profound respect for Saquon Barkley and everything he means to that organization. Think about, you go out there and pay Daniel Jones all that money, and then Saquon Barkley is like fighting to get paid. Come on.
One last thing, the state of Texas, no state income tax. I know, Saquon, you're tired of paying for it up here. keep a lot more of your money, boss.
What about them Cowboys?
Yeah, he's not alone. Cowboys, listen, I mean, there's not a team in the league that wouldn't be made much better by having Saquon Barkley. Would you rather the Bears draft Caleb Williams at number 1 or trade the pick and build around Justin Fields?
I'm going to go with Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams is a better prospect than Justin Fields coming out of Ohio State. And I just think, obviously, we talked about the contract and how inexpensive he would be to build around. So because of who he is as a prospect, I think he's a better prospect. I'm going to go with Caleb Williams in this situation.
So there's a lot of pieces to all of this. First off, I want you to hear Mike T yesterday, our general manager, Mike Tannenbaum, putting himself in the shoes of the Bears general manager right now.
If I'm Ryan Poles, the GM of the Bears, I'm calling him up and say, Caleb, you're a Bear. You could move here in April, start learning the offense, May, June, July. You can wait till Halloween. But you're a Chicago Bear. Find real estate because this is where your future is. When I see the Commanders calling, I don't even answer.
So let the record show that was Tim finds it funny. That was in response to the idea that the Bears want Caleb Williams and he doesn't want them. What would you do in the event he doesn't want them? What was not raised in that conversation, because frankly until today it has not been part of the discussion on this show, was the idea that Caleb Williams might not be the clear-cut choice at number 1. But Tim, you have a different idea.
Well, I just think this. We're going to go through the evaluation process. Much of it's done because the guys have played. And so what Caleb Williams has put on tape has been really, really good. But I'm just saying right now that it's not going to be a consensus. It won't be, because there's so much to like about Drake May that I think there are going to be plenty of people that think Drake May is the best prospect in this class. And he checks every box. I've called a number of his games. I've seen, like, I've been here at ESPN for 15 years, and so seen Stafford come out, seen Andrew Luck come out, seen guys like that. I think that he is as close to a clean prospect, a perfect prospect at that position as either of those guys. Mm-hmm. Like that's how good I think that he can be at the next level. I don't think I'm going to be the only one that feels that way about him.
Well, you see the grades up there. I mean, that's awfully close. Let me ask you, because I have been doing so much preparation already and research for this. People will point to the fact that his performance this year did not match the performance of the year before, and there were a few games, NC State, Virginia, where he seemed to struggle. Yeah, and so change of offensive coordinator, they definitely lost talent, and I think sometimes it's easy to just get caught up in solely the production at the college level, but the reality is there's also a projection there. And when you look at his physical size, skill set, intelligence, like stuff that you can measure he's checking every single box. And then beyond that, the intelligence
competitiveness, stuff like that, that is going to be off the charts. He has everything you're looking for in terms of somebody to lead your organization. There are no concerns with him. I get what you're saying, hey, turn the ball over here in this game. That happens to every quarterback. And then on top of that, his ability to create at his size is not normal. A lot of people look at how Caleb creates. Sure, what he does creating, guys his size don't do.
There are turnover questions with Caleb Williams as well. Of that, there is no question. Caleb Williams seems to fit the mold everyone is looking for right now. Everyone's looking for Patrick Mahomes, and he's got that. He's got that dynamic athleticism. He's got this off, the arm angle throws and all that kind of stuff. Marcus, I know we're early in this process, and your job is to evaluate NFL players. But this is the first I've heard of that maybe the Bears' decision could be based, at least in part, on their belief that it isn't so obvious that Caleb Williams is by far the best prospect here. What do you think?
Yeah, we was talking about it. Dan mentioned that too early in the season when he was like, it's probably not going to be a consensus at number one. I'll tell you, it's a consensus at number one for me. When you watch Caleb Williams play football, based on what we watching in the league now and his ability to improv and create, that's what teams are looking for. And Tim talked about the development. I think that's a big part of the situation that he falls into, Caleb Williams I'm speaking of. But the intangible things that you can't teach is what is lighting this league on fire right now. It's why we thought Anthony Richardson could have potentially trended towards being the Rookie of the Year. Obviously, his injuries derailed him. C.J. Stroud was more of a clean prospect coming out as well. He had that performance against Georgia that put a lot of the athleticism to bed. So Drake may fall into that line, and it may shake up people based on Bryce and C.J. last year. Some of the things we said about Bryce. The improvisation, the ability to be a playmaker, the off-script things. CJ was clean. He stood in the pocket, didn't move around a lot, didn't make a ton of wild plays with his legs, but made a ton with his arm. But man, when I watched Caleb Williams play the few times that I did in college, I was like, an organization is concerned about filling seats and making sure they have a dynamic playmaker at the quarterback position. And he fit that mold a bunch when I watched him this year.
I hear that part. Now, Chicago doesn't have to worry about filling seats. They've been filling up that stadium for 100 years. They need to figure out winning. And so here's the question to me. If Washington really does want Caleb Williams, then he doesn't have to just be better than Drake May or Jaden Daniels for the purposes of this exercise. He has to be better than that player plus whatever you might be able to get back in return. So you might be able to flip that pick to Washington and get an extra number one or something, or New England, or whoever it is that wants to get up there. This isn't as easy a choice as some might make it.
But it should be.
It should be.
For the Chicago Bears.
You love him. You love Caleb Williams.
I do, and two plays come to my mind. I mentioned one in the first hour, right? The 4th and 1 versus Kansas when he's at Oklahoma, and he takes the ball from the running back as he's getting stopped, and he picks up that first down. But last year, we see a fumbled snap, right? Bad snap by the center. He picks the ball up and throws the ball in the air for an explosive play. Just the instincts. I read a book by T.D. Jakes, The Power of Instincts. That young man has it. Phenomenal.
What do you think, D-Wood, about all this?
Listen, I think there's going to be a lot of credence to what Tim is talking about. I think once we get, dive deeper into the evaluation process, there's going to be teams that's going to fall in love with Drake May. Drake May is a big, people don't understand how good of an athlete he is. He is a phenomenal athlete. He's gonna wow people in this process. But I do feel like Caleb Williams. I think when it's all said and done, he's gonna be the number one pick.